And so I added scuba diving to that, and I found that there's not a lot of divers that go around and actually do what I'm doing. We have a lot of divers that have been trained in this area, but a lot of them have quit and retired and doing other things. You look for, when you're growing up, you look for a job that's a need and what you feel good in your heart that you can do good at, and when I went to school in college, I didn't think, well, I took Parks and Recreation and art, and I never thought that I could really be, much into anything else. And so as I got into the military and I got into, then I went and got to college, I go, wow, there's a lot of openings of different things you can do out there. And zip it because I don't want to get hot. This is really warm in here. I'm in a room that's warm, and so if I zip it all the way up, I'll start sweating in some of my dry suit. So I got my helmet with the light on it. Got my light on, then I have my camera, so I can document evidence, document what I'm looking at. Okay, so my name is Mark Allen, and I'm a diver, scuba diver. I'm an underwater investigator, and I've been doing this for over 35 years. I've been diving since 1977. I started in the Army Rangers, and been diving, got out in civilian life, and but I spent 30 years in the military. But I dive civilian-wise, looking for evidence. People call me and ask me to go out and look for things. I've been involved in finding skeletons, like the one that's behind you in the corner back there. I found full skeletons just like that. They weren't intact like that. They were just laying on the ground, like the water just washed it away, the dirt, and there was the skeleton just laying out there. That was a 400-year-old skeleton there, 300 to 400 years old. I was involved in the Kennewick Man, which was a 9,300-year-old skeleton. That was out in the Columbia River back in '96. So I get calls from the police and fire, civilians, which you're a civilian. People in the military are military, and then everybody else is a civilian. So so I get calls to go out and look for things for people. And so there's a process of looking for it. That's what we're going to cover today. And so, and everybody there can become a diver. If you guys want to be a diver, you can take up diving lessons and just progress yourself in diving like I did. You start off diving, and then you read a lot of books on interest. You may have to join some agencies maybe to become a underwater investigator. There's a lot of classes you can go to. You may have to pay a couple $100 to go to, and to just like education, to educate yourself. And around here, we only have like maybe 4 divers that do what I'm doing. So there's a need for it. I'm not sure if there's a need for it around where you're at, but you can still get interested in it and do that when you even as you start diving actually when you're 12 years old. You start taking diving classes and getting used to being in the water and doing stuff like that. Okay, so do you guys have any questions for me?
Allie?
How cold is it usually down there?
Well, that's a good question. No one's ever asked me that before. 6 months out of the year, the Columbia River is under 50 degrees. 6 months out of the year, it's over 50 degrees. It sometimes gets around 70 degrees. That's around August, July, August. And then in September, it'll start dropping down in the 60s. And maybe around November, it'll be back down in below the 50s. So that's a good question. That's why I wear a dry suit, so I can stay in the water a long time. If you just got in the water, what's your body temperature? Guys, what's your normal body temperature?
98. Oh.
Yeah, mine's 98.6, sometimes 98.7. Everybody's varies. And so If you get in anything that's colder than that, 80 degrees, 85 degrees, even 90 degrees, it's going to eventually, your body core is going to start losing body heat. You have to start, you have to eat food to help to make the food, or make the heat, generate the heat, things like that. So, so if it's 80 degrees, then it's going to get colder quicker, but it may take hours for that to happen. Now, in 50 degree water, or let's say 45 degree water, which it's actually below, it's around 40 right now. So I could probably last about an hour in that water only if I had a life jacket on before I would become, before I go unconscious. If I didn't have a life jacket on and I didn't have these thermal clothes on and I just went in like you'd probably lose feelings in your arms and lose swim failure. Without a life jacket on, you'd lose swim failure, and then you'd get vertical, and then you'd sink in the water. So it's very important to wear the right thermals when you're out in and around the water. So if you knew you were going to be out in the water, you'd probably, if you didn't have a wetsuit or dry suit, then you would stay out of the water, and you might have a spare pair of everything: tennis shoes, socks, clothes, preferably wool out in the wintertime because it keeps you warmer. And so, you always have a spare change of clothes just in case you get wet. But definitely wear a life jacket anytime you're in and around the water also, just in case you fall in or something happens. Good question. Anybody else?
Mason?
How long did you stay in the longest? How long did you stay in the coldest spot that you've been?
Well, that's a really good question. I know in the when I've gone to Hawaii, I was down probably an hour and 15 minutes without switching tanks. And so I'd probably say maybe in 35. I've been working for the last couple of weeks in 38 degree water. So I'd stay in it maybe in only 7 feet of water. It's only 7 feet, so it's not very deep. So I know under 30 feet, I could stay in it for at least, all day if I want to. Just keep switching tanks and get back in. But if I'm moving a lot, then I don't stay down as long because I'm going through my air a lot faster. So if you guys go out and run, you have recess, right? And you guys run a lot, you play basketball, football, soccer, whatever, and you run and you go, well, I'm doing that when I'm doing that underwater and I'm swimming and kicking really hard, fighting that current, or I'm working really hard. I breathe really, I breathe hard. You're a working diver. And so you're doing basically a cardiovascular underwater, breathing all that air really fast. So you go through it, I can go through it, 20 minutes. If I'm staying nice and calm down there, not doing much, taking pictures and just keep on going with the current, I can stay down there probably 45 minutes to an hour. If the water's 35 degrees like it has been, I probably would be able to stay in deeper water. The average is around 35 feet out here in the Columbia. So I could probably stay out there maybe 35 to 40 minutes before my hands would still get cold.
Questions?
Now you need to have proper gloves on also, to keep your hands warm. I got dry gloves, so I put on a wool set, gloves, put my hand in here, and then that goes right in here, and then my hand stays dry. My feet are dry because you saw, I put them in my suit. I had booties on, so I can fill my suit up with air if I want to stay nice and warm. Okay, question?
Kyle?
What's the coldest temperature you've ever been in the water?
Well, that's a really good question. I do ice diving, and I don't have my picture in here like I usually do, but I go ice diving, and when I do that, the water will actually start freezing at what? When's water freeze?
32.
32? Mm-hmm. Okay, so water will freeze up. Water you want me to explain the process, how water freezes in a river? Okay, so you have in our area, like let's say the Yakima River, or in a pool area where the water's not moving so much, the warm goes where? Does warm water come up, or warm heat? Does the air come up or go down? Goes up just like where you're at in the room, right? It goes to the ceiling, right? So your teacher's being taller as she is, she's going to feel the heat up there before you are because you're down toward the bottom. Okay, so the heat rises. So in the water, the warm water on the bottom rises. That chills down to around 37 degrees to 32 to 37 degrees, and then it sinks. That cold air, cold water sinks to the bottom, and replaces it with that warm water, and it just keeps circulating like that until all of it is the same temperature. So I dove in ice water, 32-degree water around here, ice water, ice diving, but the water actually could be around 35 to 37 degrees. But I probably dove in 32-degree water. That's a very, very good question, and you want to make sure you have proper gear on. In a dry suit, I could stay down there an hour, or it depends on how long my rest parts of my body get cold. In a wetsuit, where you're in a thin layer suit or even thick, but it lets water in, and your body, it depends on your body heat to keep it warm. And when you start to get cold, then your body's going to get cold, and then you need to go up. Good question.
What tools do you use?
What tools do you use?
Okay, very good question. Well, my biggest tool is, what do you think your biggest tool is that you have on you?
What do you think?
Your what?
Air tank.
Huh?
The air tank.
Oh, they say air tank?
Yes.
Okay, well, your biggest one is your mind, your brain. That's a tool, using your brain, right? Okay, so you all have that, right? So you use your brain. And in the water, your brain, you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. If I think about Jaws in the water, the shark, then that's bad, right? And it might get scared, and I can let my mind, because I'm in really murky water, can't see. If I think of Jaws, a shark down there or something attacking me, then I may not, and I can panic, and panic's not good when you're diving or in the water. So I got to think of really good things underwater to keep my mind on the job. So I think of good things and not negative things when I'm in the water, and always keeping my. That's your biggest worry actually, is your mind. When people learn to scuba dive in the military, that's their biggest problem. Is it's mental. Diving is it's physical, but it's more mental than physical. So let's go to my other tools. It would be my hands. So I can brush, I can use the current water. Now, on land, you might take a bottle of water, find something like that's under the dirt, and pour water on it, and wash it away really easy, right? Well, underwater, I could go like this, and I'm fanning that and letting all that muck and mud come off of it, and then I can see, I can see the top of it, and keep fanning, and then I get more and more, and next thing you know, I have a skull. And I can actually do that without touching it. I might use a brush. It just depends on what I'm doing. But the biggest thing I use is my hands. I might use a knife once in a while, but that can gouge something. So the biggest thing would be fanning the water and fanning all that mud off of it, so I can see what lies below. And then I use a knife, or my camera, and I'm taking pictures during the whole time. Once I see stuff, I take pictures of it so I can document that. And I take a lot of pictures. You could take about 100 to 200 pictures and only have one good one come out, that you can use to make a photo of, things like that. Okay.
Tell them a little bit about why and other reasons why the photos underwater are important, partially because of the visibility and all too.
Well, you might use it as evidence in a court. You don't have to go to testify. You may be talking about I can see my eyes. When I see stuff, through my eyes, it goes to my brain and processes it, right? Well, in a camera, it may pick up light And yeah, it can pick up a thing of light and show up a lot better and make it clear. So when I come to the surface after taking all these pictures, I can look at it and go, wow, I didn't see that underwater. So I did a job where I was putting rock on the bottom of a boat launch, and I went down and took pictures, and I only saw, my eyes only processed and saw certain things because it was dark. But with my camera, without using a flash on it, it was picking up a lot more. It just seems to pick up. So you know, that's something you may, you know, it's a good thing that she brought it up, because your camera can, you know, like I say, can pick up a lot more than what you're seeing. Just the way it's built. Hopefully that helped.
Lexi?
What do you like most about your job? What do you like most about your job?
Okay. Well, I like helping the community, and so if we can help find something, and you may hear that from people all the time and go, well, you know, it's about the community, but for me, it is about the community. Sometimes I get paid for certain work I do, but when it comes to recovering, some things I don't charge, maybe food and gas, things like that, but. It's giving back to the community, and you know, it feels good to be able to, you know, help out solve something like, you know, when we found the Kennewick Man, that's 9,300 years old, you know, skeleton. So how many people can say they were involved in finding this, you know, skeleton that, you know, was part of history? So you might, you know, and there's treasure hunters out in the ocean that are, you know, divers, but they could spend like 5 to 10 years out there looking for evidence on the bottom without really going diving. They're using sonar and other instruments. So that's a job that's takes a lot of patience and can take a lot of time, you know, to do. So, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy diving. So you want to enjoy something that you're doing. You know, you don't want to be stuck with something that you don't like. Sometimes you're getting paid for things you don't like, so you can pay for college or education or food. So you may have to do that, but you know, you can try to get into something that you like.
Minko, did you have a question? Mason?
I forgot.
Ellie?
I do that a lot.
What is the biggest size or find that you found?
Well, I find boats underwater, and I find cars underwater that people dump in the water for, you know, trying to get rid of the crime scene. So I get those. Those are big. I found a structure that actually I dove when Angelique was out here. Your teacher was out here. As a structure that ended up being a part of a foundation, I believe, for the bridge. But when you looked at it with sonar, it looked like a Viking ship underwater. So that was pretty big. And it was pretty neat. The wood, it had really wood that was probably maybe 18 inches by 18 inches thick. Really, you know, really thick lumber. So that was really big. Find cameras. I find hatchets underwater. Skulls underwater. Skeletons. That's about it. I dive. Past summer I dove up with the upper part of the Yakima or the Columbia River, where I don't think anybody's ever dove before. So I could say I dove. I was probably the first diver to dive in that area, and found structures underwater. One was like an arch, so I dove. I went through it. You know, it was pretty neat underwater to be, you know, finding things like that.
Amber?
What's your favorite find you've ever found?
I would have to say the Kennewick Man. You know, I hate going back to it, but that was really, I'd say, the neatest thing that I found, you know, underwater. Above water, I found, you know, got in the water with these, what they're called sturgeons. They're like 12 to 20 foot, they look like sharks, but they're prehistoric. And so that's pretty neat to dive with them, but they were dead. They died probably because of the heat and stress and things like that this past summer. But I was in the water, you know, trying to just, you know, see what they look like, it being beside them, with my small body being beside this thing that's around, you know, 15 to 20 feet long.
Mason?
That was probably 100 years old too. That shark or fish, they said, was probably around 90 to 100 years old.
supposed to get it up, or are you just supposed to take pictures of it?
Well, that's a good question. I'll take pictures of it. Take pictures of the VIN number, a number just like your car, and they have a VIN number on the back of the boat. Or I'll take a picture of the license plate or the numbers on the side if I have that, and then I can take it up and show it to the departments, sheriffs, and they can find out whose it is, and see if there's anybody missing, so I can look for a body down there and see if anybody's in it. And so, but I have what's called lift bags. Well, yeah. Now this is a small bag, but I have a car would normally weigh around 5,000 pounds, 4,000 to 5,000. That's a truck, pickup truck. So in the water. So what I would do is attach bags to the tires, around the 4 tires, and then I would put air. I have air. I'm going to do it by mouth right here. And as this fills up with air, I'm just placing that water around that truck, and I'm right. So I have like 4,000 pound lift bags that I could put on the truck, or even 4 2,000 pound lift bags, and raise that truck up to the surface, and then we can bring it toward shore, use a tow truck, and drag it on shore. So.
But then how would you be putting the air into those lift bags? Because obviously you wouldn't be doing that by mouth. So what would you use?
Right. I would use, since some areas are remote, I would use my scuba tanks, and which is compressed air, and that's around 3,000 pounds of pressure in there, square inch of air. So I would have 3,000 pounds, and that would lift. That probably put enough air to fill up at least 4 1,000 pound bags, or enough to fill up 2 2,000 pound bags, 4,000 pounds. That's very good. So I don't have around my area. Sometimes I can take my compressor, again, electric compressor, and fill up with air, or I can use my scuba tanks and fill it up. The problem with filling up with scuba tanks is if I run out of air where I need to breathe underwater, I may need that tank. So I have to, logistically think about how much air I'm going to use to lift that car or boat out of the water.
Allie?
Once I get it to the surface, then it's a lot easier to handle.
How do you track how much air you have in your scuba tanks?
Good question. So, have you ever noticed in your mom's car, your dad's car, how much gas they have in there? Right? So, same thing here. This has a tool on it, a console, has instruments on it, and so right now it's down around, it's in the red, it's below 500 pounds. Normally this would have around 3,000 pounds of air in it. That's all I can put in it, around 30, I put 35 in it, but normally around 3,000. So when it gets down here around in the red 500, then I go up there. I go up from there. Some people go up at 1,000, but I go up at 500. If then I have a safety stop, I'll stop 10 feet underwater from the surface so I can get this nitrogen that may have built up in my system. So I get that out. On the back side, it has how deep I go. That's very important because at 30 feet, I can stay down there. It's 1 atmosphere. I can stay down there all day if I wanted to, and come up and get more air and then stay down. Or I could do surface supplied air where they're supplying the air from the surface on shore or on the boat, and they can switch and give me a switch tanks up there. Usually, I have the tank on the back of on my back, and I go down with that tank. That's scuba. So this tells me how deep. Now, if I'm down to 60 feet and I'm down an hour, I have to come up. An hour later, I come up, and then I'm on the boat or on shore for about an hour, letting that nitrogen get out of my system. Those small bubbles get out before I go back in, so I don't have a nitrogen buildup in my system. Okay, and I have a compass to let me know. Like when I'm ice diving, I might shoot it to shore. So if I get lost or something happens under the ice, I can head toward shore and break through the ice. Normally, if the ice is 2 feet or 2 inches, or even 1 inch, it's really hard to bust through that with a knife, even with your tank. Okay, so that's a very good question. You want to look at this ever so often, see how much air you have, and make sure you don't run out of air. Most drownings happen with divers that have air in their tank. They panic some other way, and they still had a lot of air in their tank. Okay, they panic. Next question.
Describe for them, one of the things they'd ask is how you know where to look for something. And then also they're familiar with the idea of a grid on a land archaeological site. So how do you figure out and follow a search pattern and all in water?
And that's a very good question. So it's very important for me because I only have a certain amount of air in my tanks and a certain amount of tanks. So that's important because I've gone to places where I actually ran out of tanks because I only had like 2 or 3 tanks with me. And I thought, and it was really squirrely water. I found the body in 15 minutes after arriving because I did a really good witness interview. So if you were standing there and you're the ones that called me to find something, I would go, okay, where do you want me to look? And you'd tell me, you'd show me, right? On land, it's real easy, but in the water, it's actually about the same. You're on shore when you saw something happen. So you'd go, okay, I'd go, okay, show me where you were standing where were you standing when you last saw this? Like, let's say a drowning. And so you would say, okay, you take me right where you're standing. I'll go, okay, I'm going to put a swimmer in the water, and I'm going to put him out there, and he's going to swim in the area that you want him to be. And when you see that's where the last scene point or where the person went down, then you tell me, stop, that's where it is. And then we'll put the diver in that, put a float out there and put a diver, and then the diver will go down and look for it. So, so you as a witness would tell me, or I talk to other witnesses, they tell me exactly where, close to the area, and I would go down to that area and look and find it. If it's a body, I'm usually going to find it real fast. If it's really, really small, I would take my time and spend more time looking at it in that area. If I have really good visibility, I might find it, but you have to, like I said, I've been doing this for 35 years, so I can take shortcuts in my mind on how to find things a lot faster. And so even with thick gloves that I'm wearing, I have to know, in no visibility that this is what I'm looking for. If I hold something and I can't see it, then I take it up toward the shore or toward the surface so I can see, I can see it. For like you turn the light out there and you can't see something, you put something in your hand, and so you see the door that has light, that's letting light in it, so you go toward that door to let yourself out, but you don't open the door, but you have light underneath that door that you can put that right there and say, okay, what is that? Now I see it. And a lot of times I have a dive light underwater so I can see what's there also. But so what I would do is I drew a little sketch here, drawing, and so this is along shore right here, going parallel, and here it's called a 180. You guys know what 360 is, don't you?
Yeah.
All the way around you, right? A circle?
Yeah.
Well, this is half of that, a 180. Because if I do a 180 or a 360, what's going to happen? I have to come out of the water, right? And go all the way around. So I can't do that because I'm looking for something in the water. So I stay in the water and I go out, give me 6 feet of line, and I'm going to look for that big object, find it. If it's smaller, then he may just give me 1 foot, and we work that. Now, if we know that the spot's right out here, instead of doing all of this out here, going all the way across a 180, I may just do a small percentage, like 45%, 40 or 90, right? So 40 would be from there maybe to there, or 90 might be from here to here. So if the object is right out here, I'm going to go out there, drop down on it, And then if I can't see it, then we're going to work our way out. But instead of going all the way over here, I'm just going from here to here. And my surface support line tender knows that, and he's looking at my bubbles, and he's following that. Now on the bottom, we have right down in here, we have the shore, and it's shoreline parallel sweep. I'm just going parallel to shore, working my way out. But if you know where the hot spot is, the last scene point, then I just go out there and then I drop down. I put a buoy there and I drop down, and there it is. Now, if there's current, and you tell me, even out in the river where it's around 4 or 5 knots, that's pretty fast. I can only swim against the current around maybe 1 minute. But even in that kind of water, when you go in, you may drop your body. You lose air in your body and you pop. So whatever it may be, it drops to the bottom. So usually you're going to be there. Or if it's, let's say it's 20 feet, I have 20 feet here water. So if it's 20 feet, you can end up downriver a little bit, 20 feet. But you're not going to end up going downriver. You're just going to be within 20 feet of that area because it's 20 feet of water. You guys understand?
Does that make sense, the little bit of drift that can be created? Okay.
So you could either go straight down or within 20 feet radius of where you went down. So I'm not going to say because of the current going, oh, he's way, 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 way downriver. You got to look for him down there because the water, how fast the water's going. Normally, when if you drop a pebble in the water, you weigh more than a pebble. The pebble's going to go straight down, but it could go at an angle. It could. And so I go down on a hot spot and I work from there and work my way downriver. Usually, actually, I would do a 360. And hopefully that answers your question. So it's very important, if you don't have a witness interview, it's like going out in the field and walking and searching the whole field because you don't know where it is. And it could be something big, it could be something small. But that, so sometimes you don't dive. You could do a PR dive, just to tell people, okay, I did a dive, it's not there. But, and I've done those. But normally I don't like doing it because it's wasting my time, and anytime I enter the water, it could be, safety hazard. So I like having witnesses there, someone tell me, okay, it's in that area, so then I have something to work for in that area.
Amber?
Have you ever encountered like a shark or a dolphin in the water?
Well, the biggest problem we have around here would be fishing line and rope, or fishing line and boat line. Because I have things on my equipment, my tank and my regulators, that fishing line can actually get hung up on, and I can't see fishing line all the time underwater. And so it can get around my gear, and even though it has a breaking point of 20 pounds on that fishing line, it's still enough that if I need to go to the surface, and I need to go to the surface because I'm running out of air or something, and I get that fishing line on me, that line can get nice and taut, and they can actually keep me down, and I can drown. So that's the biggest hazard, is finding rope. It gets around my gear, around my foot. That's why I carry knives also, so I can cut myself loose. So there's little things like that can do it. But we have the sturgeons that are prehistoric, type fish that are really old in the area, but we don't have sharks. I've been out in the ocean where there are sharks, and usually they leave us alone. I don't bother him, he doesn't bother me. Very good question. Well, that's why I was talking about your mind. If you think about sharks in the water, do you want to put your foot in the water? You may not, right? But sharks, very seldom. Chance of getting hit by lightning is more than getting bit by a shark. Good question.
Mason?
If you're in a spot where a bunch of people drowned, how do you know which bones other people?
Oh, which bones?
Yeah.
Okay,
Which bones?
and basically, I think, were you talking earlier to me, Mason, about what they find multiple skeletons versus multiple bodies?
Yeah.
Okay, if there are multiple skeletons, how do they figure out what goes to each body?
Good. Now you understand you understand what he's the body, and a body is a body. like what you're in right now, a body, versus a skeleton, which is in the back of the room right there. So if you found a body, then that wouldn't be that hard to do, but you would still have to try to identify it by teeth, fingerprints, things like that, which you can do when you bring it to the surface. And not all things we bring to the surface is identified real easy. So because what water does to you underwater, okay? Does water does to the body. If it's a skeleton, and we found quite a few of those, so what they do is a DNA test, which I forgot what year that happened, if it was in the 90s or whatever, but they do DNA tests, and they can find out by the skeletons, and get the whole complete skeleton by the DNA that it matches, that this bone goes, with the skeleton. And then they can test and find out, who it is, hopefully. That answer it?
Describe to them what happened with how the Kennewick man was found and what you guys did to mark the area and find all the bones, because remarkably there's only a few bones from one hand that were not recovered. That is an almost complete skeleton.
Well, when the people that found it, they were going along shore trying to sneak into the boat parade we had, boat races. And they stumbled up onto a skeleton skull. And so they put it in they hid it, they put it later on, they put it in a 5-gallon bucket with water. And so so we went in, I was on dive rescue, Columbia Basin Dive Rescue, and I got called in. I still do dive rescue, I have my own company. Excuse me, so I went in as a primary diver, and they took us in by boat. And it was actually very, wading water, meaning it was up to my knee. So even though if I had a scuba tank on, I really didn't need it because I couldn't see. The water was really, really, really mucky. So I didn't need it because I didn't need my scuba so much because I was in shallow water and I could reach down with my hands and feel on what I have, right? So as we were told where the area was, there was a stick sticking out where the guy had found the skull. So, and it was actually about 20, 30 feet away from shore. It wasn't on the shoreline. So we worked our way, my partner and I worked our way in. We're actually getting on our knees now and working our way in slowly. He's right next to me, a couple feet away, and we're feeling this mud with gloves on. So because people throw trash in the water, and we could get, glass bottles, trash, other trash that can, pop bottles, pop cans that can be, in there. So we wear gloves to protect our hands. And so we're feeling, and you may feel something that's hard. You go, well, it's harder than a stick. You bring it, and you can bring it out of the water and you can check it out. But a lot of the bones had this hard casing of hard clay on it over all these years that was on it. It could have been, buried on land, on the shore, on land, and so it had that hard mud around it. And then when the water pushed away all that mud, there was the body, the skeleton part. And so I would feel things and feel, okay, it's hard, and then look at it. I can take it out of the water and look at it. And because it's Indian, we want to try to preserve the heritage of taking pictures and doing other things unless you have their permission. So I would look at it, then I would place it back where I found it, and then find other spots. And I would use a flag, a piece of metal, like a piece of rod with a flag on it. They use them for irrigation canals or irrigations where you put where the irrigation is out in the river. I mean, out in your yard. So I use that. And I could use this marker right here because it has it glows. So I can use this and stick this in the mud, and it would mark it so other people can find where I, write down those bones, and then they can look at it and take it out. And we had forensic pathologists come in. Jim Chatters, who came in from Seattle area. Actually, he was in the area anyway, so they contacted him, and he came over and helped out, removed a lot of the skeletons too. But You document, you take pictures, and process everything, so you know where it's at.
Questions?
But that's amazing to find something that old and find almost the whole skeleton.
Mason?
With the dry suit and the wet suit, which one keeps you more warm?
Well, during the summertime, if I put my dry suit on, I would stay probably really nice and warm. There's a longer process putting a wetsuit on. I think I said wetsuit on, than a dry suit. My other dry suits I get in the back section. So it's just like putting your pants on or coveralls on. You put them on and then you zip it up and you're good to go. So the dry suit I can put on in 1 minute. I can put my pants in then because I have boots on that are attached to it, and then I put it over my head, and I'm done. Okay, so the dry suit would be a lot faster to get in and out, and I can stay down longer underwater. But if it does get a hole in it, I'm going to get water in my suit, and then I'll have to come up and re-warm and put different clothes on. That's the only bad about that is getting having a leak and getting wet that way, because it's not a wetsuit, it's a dry suit.
So the dry suit is the one that will keep you warmer longer.
Right. And another good question is the dry suit cost normally around $1,500 to $2,000? Where a good wetsuit, 7 mil, is one you'd wear out in the ocean in 50, 60 degree water, even short time in 40 degree water. You could wear that for a while. But once you start to get chilled, it's really hard you have to get out and get re-warm yourself. But the good thing about a wetsuit is I can stick a bottle of warm water, I can have this heated and stick it down my neck seal in my wetsuit and re-warm my whole body. So if I come to the surface, my hands are cold, I can open up my wet gloves, stick hot water down there, or warm water, not to burn yourself, but warm water to stick down there and you can warm your hands up. So that's the advantage of that. But it does take a lot longer to put that wetsuit on than it dries.
Allie?
What's that sharp thing on your suit? There. Next.
Yes.
No, next.
Huh?
It says SIA.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's an emblem to his suit. That's the brand name. The shark
Okay.
head.
Okay, so that's a good question. So right here, this has a spot right here that I would put my scuba tank, hook up my scuba tank line, a hose to this, and if I push this button, it puts air in my system, in my, sort of like this right here, put air in my dry suit. So I'm in my dry suit, I'm putting air in it, and I'm in 38 degree water, and this would push, if my finger was in the middle, it would be in the middle and it wouldn't be making contact with this, the outer skin. So this is going to push all that cold water away from my body, and that way my body can stay nice and warm. Now, right now, I'm sweating in here, and if I went in the water with this closed, the water would come contact with my suit, which is in contact with my skin, which I would get cold, right? So I push that water, put air in here, and push the suit away from my skin, and it could be like 1 or 2 inches away, and that can help me stay nice and warm. But that means I have to add more weight to me to keep me down. So if I put air in my suit, I'm adding buoyancy, and I can come up to the surface. So here, it's like elevator button. I push this button, put air in my suit. I push this button to let air out of my suit, so then I can sink and stay down at the bottom. When I'm working in the current out here, I go down the bottom, the current can actually sweep me downriver, so I have a lot of weight on me, more than I need, to keep me down so I can work in that current and stay in one spot in that current. If I don't, then I'm going to be flowing downriver. And nothing's wrong with that. You can flow down with the current. It's called a current dive, and and you're flowing with the current. Once you run out of air, or once you get low on air, as you plan for, 500, then I would come up to the surface. But all I'm doing is floating with that current, and I'm staying off the bottom, and I'm floating, and I'm looking for that object. And if I see it, then I can sink and stay there, and then they can see my bubbles as we pre-plan, and they can actually drop an anchor down in that area to mark that spot. Or I can put a float tied to it and mark it that way also. But it's very comfortable to be going with that current. It can go really fast, but I have an anchor with me. All I have to do, if I find something, I can put that down, and then I can we mark the spot, and then I come to the surface, and then we can anchor it with the boat anchor and do a safer dive on it, because we mark the spot. Any other questions?
Mason?
With the wetsuit, can you put the air inside of it to keep you warm?
No, there are dry suits. Believe it or not, there are dry suits that are made of neoprene that are are dry suits. And they're not wetsuits, but you can't put air. You can't put air in there and it stay in because it's going to come out of your. This is a wetsuit right here. That right there is not latex. If it ain't latex air, it might help keep the air in and water out. But you actually want that layer of water in there to help keep your body warm. It warms up and warms your body up. And again, once you get chilled, then you want to come up.
The water between your body and the wetsuit, its whole design is your body will warm up that water, and there's a constant transfer of water through that suit. But that acts as an insulation layer, just like if you put on sweaters and stuff to insulate your body under a coat, the water layer is acting as insulation. Whereas, go ahead, Mark.
And this back here is more insulation. This right here is my insulation I put on long johns. I would put on before I put my dry suit on. So I would put this on, and it's made of material that keeps you really nice and warm. But the outside may get wet. The inside's going to be nice and warm like wool. It's fleece is what it is, fleece. And so I would say nice and warm in that. Where a dry suit, you can put thermals on underneath it to help it, but you still want that thin layer of water in there to help keep you warm.
Because the particular dry suit he has on right now, and the one behind him is vulcanized rubber, but the one he has on even in front of him it's not plastic, but it has a plasticky feel to it. What happens when you get plastic cold? What is it going to feel like against your skin? Lexi? Yeah, it's going to feel icy. It's going to feel cold. So having the layer of thermals underneath, the wetsuit, the dry suit is keeping him dry, but the underneath layer of thermals is keeping him warm, and the material of the dry suit is also helping him if he's in water that might have hazardous materials in it as well. It's protecting him from that.
Now this one doesn't have a dry hood on it like my other one does behind me, where I have the neck seal and I have a rubber latex hood. It goes over, so I can stay completely waterproof. No water is going to get in here because of the neck seal, and so I can put my thermal on my head. Because the water is really cold, and if I get a headache, and you lose a lot of body heat out of your head, so I want to have I put a little thing on, and then I can put a hood on. Now, then I put on my a mask. None of you guys asked about my mask, but those who wear glasses know that when you wear glasses so you can see, right? And so divers wear a mask, glasses in a sense, so we can see underwater. It pushes that water away from my face so I can see. If I have the water right up here, I can't see that well. It's blurry. And if I go in the water with no mask on, then it's blurry too, right? So I have a mask on, whatever it is, and this is a full face mask. It's attached to my scuba tank line right here.
Tell them the cost of these masks, Mark.
Well, this was around $1,200. Can you hear me?
A little bit. Yeah, it's garbled.
You
ever watch Star Wars?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Darth Vader?
Yeah.
They actually used a scuba regulator for him to talk through in order to get that sound. It's a piece of trivia that people don't know.
Breathe the air, and that air is coming in there, so I can breathe the air. No, not using scuba air. Okay? I told you.
So this mask has a comm unit, it has earpieces on it, right here, so I can hear. Those are my ears. It has a mic in there, that little red mic, so I can talk. And fighter pilots have the same system right here where they're in jets. They breathe out of their nose and mouth. So you can breathe out of your nose and mouth instead of having a regulator just in your mouthpiece. So this goes to my scuba, I'm getting my air this way. And this is my comm unit right here. This hooks onto a rope, this line I have that has 4 wires in it, like a telephone wire, and it goes to the surface. And the surface person has a headset on or speakers on, and we can sit there and talk to each other, just like we are now. They don't have to really push a button. They don't have to push a button. We sit there and talk, and I'll go surface, 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 and give him a description of what I have. And if he wants me, he'll go diver, 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 and then talk slow to let me know things because I'm breathing underwater. So when I'm breathing out, I can't, and the bubbles will come across, I can't hear him. So he has to let me know diver, 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 and talk slow to let me a little bit. You have to be a little bit patient there when you're talking, so we can sit there and talk to each other and understand. Then he would go over that he's done talking, so I know that he's completed his conversation.
Talk to them a little.
Diver, go turn right, over.
Talk to them about the safety precautions that you have to do to when you're going down into deeper water, more than 1 atmosphere, and then coming back up, and why you have to do that.
Well, I did bring my pop can in here. I drank it yesterday. I had a bottle of pop, and so after the class I drank it. I drank my nitrogen. So what happens is you have different atmospheres, and as you go down 30 feet, that's an atmosphere. And you go down to 60 feet, that's another atmosphere. Basically, I think it's around every 33 feet, I believe. So as you go down, you just have some precautions you have to take. Watch when you take that when you're scuba diving. It's like the precautions they take when they go out in outer space. And so anytime you enter the water, we're not like Nemo, we can't breathe the water, so we have to have special gear on, and that's scuba gear, and the mask, whatever it may be, and the regulator. And so that's why it's really important to take diving classes before you just go out and venture and try it yourself. So as I go down, my lungs are full. My lungs, I have air. And I forgot how many liters of air my lungs hold. But right now I'm breathing at the surface, and I'm just doing okay, right? Breathing normal. And actually, the way you've been breathing right now is the way you breathe underwater. You haven't noticed that you're breathing, have you? But when you're scuba diving, you may breathe. You go through the regulator, the second stage, and through your regulator, and you see those bubbles. That's your breathing. You can actually hear yourself breathing. But on surface, you sit there breathing, and that's the way you breathe underwater. If you're working, you really don't realize that you're breathing, believe it or not. But you breathe all the time. You don't want to hold your breath. And so as I go down, it's not that I'm losing air, but my lungs get smaller and smaller as I go deeper. So down at 100 feet, they may be like that right there. So if I hold that, and I hold my breath coming to the surface, even at actually 5 feet, my lungs this is my lungs underwater, and it's compressed air, and as I surface and not breathing the air out, as I come up, my lungs are getting bigger because I'm not breathing the air out. Now, if I breathe on the way to the surface, I'm letting that compressed air out of my lungs, and as I go to the surface and I finally get to the surface, I want all that air out. If I'm breathing normal, I'm doing okay. But as I breathe out, I want to get that air out. If you're doing an emergency ascent, you want to let all that air out so when you hit the surface, your lungs aren't really big. But if you're scuba diving and you're on that compressed air, then you can breathe, you follow the smallest bubble going to the surface, 1 foot per second. So you can stay down there with this kind of lung, and as you surface, you're still breathing, but you're going slow to let that, so you don't get that nitrogen buildup also in your lungs and in your body, and that way your lungs don't explode.
You think
I hope that makes sense.
if you think about a soda can, if you just open it, you can hear some air bubbles in it, right? That's normal. There's oxygen dissolved in your bloodstream all the time. But when you go deep into water and you're breathing compressed air, you start to have nitrogen build up. There's always nitrogen in the air that we're breathing. We're not breathing just oxygen here in the air around us. There's nitrogen in it. But in your bloodstream, when you're in compressed, you've got water pressure surrounding you and you have compressed air going into your lungs. Your lungs are kind of, they're compressed down too. So you're taking in the air, but it's compressed into you. But nitrogen is releasing into your bloodstream in little bubbles. If you come up too fast in the water, it's like shaking that can of soda. The bubbles get really big on the surface, right? You don't want big bubbles like that in your bloodstream. It goes into your joints and creates a lot of pain. And if there's too much of it and you're coming up too fast, you actually can rupture blood vessels and your lungs. But if you're following the protocols of how to come up and you're breathing properly as you've been trained, your lungs are perfectly fine. They naturally expand the way they're supposed to. And then you make safety stops where he wouldn't come from 60 feet straight up a foot a minute and go all the way to the surface. At about 15 to 20 feet below the surface, he would stop, kind of like letting that glass of soda sit there and let the bubbles, kind of dissipate out. They pop out off the surface and suddenly there's not very many that you can see. Then you're back to the normal amount of bubbles in your bloodstream and you can come to the surface completely safely.
Right. Now, what I was doing with the balloon, I had to do a lot more with your lungs. But what she was talking about with the pop bottle is the can of pop is the nitrogen buildup in your system. You have 21% oxygen and the rest of it's nitrogen. So if you stay down too long or you come back up too fast, you hear what's called the bends. And that's with nitrogen. Water or in a decompression chamber to help get that out of you. That nitrogen out of your system. So it's, if you go in the good experiment, take a balloon underwater, then say 10 feet of water.
The deep end of the pool.
Okay, in a pool, and then tie this, and then let it surface. Tie it off, and then let it go to the surface. This will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it may even pop when it's on the surface. It may not, but it will get big, expand. That's like your lungs underwater by holding your breath. Some people panic as divers, and they hold their breath coming to the surface, and they forget about letting that air out of their system, and then they end up overexpanding their lungs, and then they could rupture. Okay. So you can do that simply doing this underwater with a little balloon, and as the surface, or you can blow a bubble underwater, and watch it as it goes up. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then it hits the surface. It's really big.
Other
question.
Questions you have about what he does, why he chose to get into it, equipment, things he's found, etc. What kinds of questions do you have left? Allie?
What's the most interesting thing you found?
Other than the Kennewick Man, what's the most interesting thing you've found, Mark?
I found a class in St. Louis.
Underwater.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I would say I found quite a few. Everything's been interesting. I tell everybody to go to the ocean and go dive there because There's parts of the Columbia River I doubt that anybody has ever set foot in, like going to outer space. So we've had people outer space, and there's so much of the water that nobody has been in. And so I try to dive as much as I can to find those spots where no one's ever dove before. So just diving in a new area is really neat to me, because probably no one's ever dove that area before. I did dive years ago and to look for a hand grenade someone threw in the water. Tried to bring a hand grenade up, and then we gave it to the EOD, explosives experts, to take it to the Yakima and blow it up.
Tell
That was
them.
really interesting. I found a lot of things underwater. I would say the skeleton was probably the neatest thing, and I found World War II bombs. They were duds because we used to have a place called a Navy shipyard, a Navy during World War II, and Hanford's been known for the ammunition and things we made here. But they used to have a Navy yard here, and planes would take off and drop duds. They were actually duds. The bombs, they had powder in them like flour, and they would hit the ground, so they would practice. And some made it to the river, and they were really big ones. And so we would find them diving, and we would have to call in a EOD, Navy SEAL divers, to go down and check them out and see if they were real or not. I didn't want to, even though we could tell they were duds, I'm not going to sit there and risk my life for it and my reputation. So I would rather have some professional come in and check it out and let me know if it's real or not.
So how do you protect evidence or artifacts when it's in the water? What do you have to do as you bring it to the surface to protect them?
Well, like the bones, we might put it in a plastic bag, or you may put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Since I could stand up or kneel down with the 93-year-old skeleton, 9,300-year-old skeleton, I could kill it, man. I could actually take it out and put those bones in a bucket right there, and then take them on shore. A lot of times we use the bucket, we keep it in water so it doesn't lose anything. With that bomb, with the 55-gallon barrel, or the World War II bombs with duds we found, it was all metal and it was already rusting underwater. But when we brought it up, we wanted to keep it in water so it doesn't deoxidize. And we finally took it out, and it just started falling apart because of the rusting. It just accelerated, the air hitting that air. You'll see a lot of things underwater that's been preserved for years and years and years. And as soon as it hits that surface, it all of a sudden just catches up to it and grows really old and dies and grows old on it. And it's really, really rusty. It falls apart. I could bring up a gun, and I'll put it in a plastic bag. I can put it in oil to help preserve it, or kerosene, or water, and they can actually pack. If it's too old, really rusty, they can actually pack concrete around it or a clay, and then shoot around through it and get a ballistics off of it. Really interesting work. Now, there's not many divers around that do the kind of work I do, so that's a plus for me. But for you might want to take up scuba diving, and you might be involved in this kind of work, forensic pathologist, police work, crime scene police work. You might be involved in that, and where you probably watch CSI and other kinds of jobs, on TV, where they do detective work, and it's really interesting, how this process works of finding things. And you guys are really smart thinkers, all of you there. So you sit there and you read a lot of books. The Underwater Investigator is a really good book. Dive rescue type of book. SRT is a really good book to read. So it tells you about all these investigations and things like that. I've gone to search and rescue conferences where we have a lot of forensic pathologists there. Some that find there were crime scene fighters, detectives to find like the Green River person who murdered a lot of people. Talk to us, and it's really, really fascinating what happens to it. When you find evidence.
Okay, unfortunately, we have to go to lunch, but what do you guys want to say?
Thank you.
Always use your noggin.
Bye.
Bye.